Martin Hayden to ask the Minister for Education and Skills the retention of its 10th teacher in 2016 and 2017 by the Boys National School in Rathangan in County Kildare. Deputy, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Cahill. Just to clarify, there's a slight error in that. The Rathangan Boys National School has 9 teachers plus the principal, and it's looking to go to 10. So apologies for that slight error in the title. But Minister, Rathangan Boys National School are, as I say, seeking that move from principal plus 9 to principal plus 10 mainstream teachers for the next year of 2016-2017. The expected enrolment for September 2016 in Rathangan St Patrick's Boys School is 270 pupils. This is well in excess of the 255 pupils required to have a principal plus 10 mainstream teachers. But the criteria, as you know, used for allocation of posts for the 2016-2017 year looks at enrolment at 30th of September in 2015. At the 30th of September in 2015, Rathangan Boys School had 254 pupils, just one short. Last September, the school applied for developing school status and were refused. They subsequently appealed this decision and have also been refused again. Now, Minister, as you know, the loss of a teacher will have a huge impact on the school and affect the pupils there most of all. At present, there will be 40 students, new entrants into junior infants, coming in September. There will be 37 pupils going into senior infants, and there will be 27 in first class. I understand the department prioritises infant classes to be as small as possible, so the principal will have a junior class at present. What he's facing is a junior class of 25, a mixed junior-senior class of 25 and a first class of 27. But if the extra teacher is secured, the difference between class sizes in second and third class will be absolutely stark, Minister. Without the additional second teacher, second class will have 33 pupils and third class will have 37 pupils. With the additional second teacher, the principal estimates at the minute that he would be able to have 24 in second class, a combined second and third class of 23 and a third class of 23. Minister, 37 pupils to one teacher in third class is not teaching, that's crowd control. I would ask that common sense would prevail here and that your officials would re-look at this case. I understand that any system nationally that deals with so many thousands of pupils around the country and thousands of staff has to have rules. But there also has to be some mechanism for dealing with very extreme changes in circumstances, as is the case with St Patrick's Boys National School in Rathangan, particularly when you consider you're missing out by just one pupil. So I would ask that you review this case and allow a practical solution which could prevent excessive class sizes where a school of 270 pupils will have only 9 mainstream teachers. Thanks, Cahill.
Deputy Minister, 4 minutes.
I'd like to thank Deputy Martin Hayden for raising this issue. This issue, the criteria that are used here are set out in an objective way and they're applied uniformly across the country. And I suppose in that context, in looking at the year ahead, in the last budget, the budget 2016, the Minister announced a 1-point improvement in the primary staffing schedule, which reduced the average pupil-teacher ratio to 27:1. So that is a provision that's coming into force this coming September. Now, in the case of Rathangan Boys National School, I think the Deputy is right. They have their enrolment figures on September 2015 was 254, as you say, and they had 9 classroom teachers. Twice, as you say, they went for an appeal. Now, they submitted an appeal for each of the meetings, seeking to gain an additional teaching post for the 2016-17 year under the criterion G, they call it, of the agreed appeals criteria, alleviating some of the pressure on class sizes at infants level for schools that make a significant contribution by absorbing demographic growth. Now, this is it's targeted at schools that are not gaining an additional post under the developing schools criteria, but nevertheless make a significant contribution to the provision of school places, which assists the response to demographic growth within their area, and the result are under significant pressure on their class sizes at infants level. A key indicator in relation to these schools is a significant increase in junior infants enrolments, which the Deputy has outlined. Now, there are criteria set out, and the appeals board looks at these. First is a fairly standard one that that if they're providing an additional class, they've got prior approval, but that's I don't think the one that applies here. The other is there are 4 tests that are applied. The school is projecting, on a realistic basis, an increase in its overall enrolments for this coming September. And the level of the projected increase is sufficient for the school to gain an additional teaching post for the 2017-2018 school year, assuming no change in the staffing schedule, and B, is insufficient for the school to gain an additional teaching post for the 2016-17 school year under the developing school criteria. So that's the first test. The second test, the school had an increase in its overall enrolment in each of the last 2 years, 2015-16 and 2014-15. 3, the number of junior infants enrolled in the school is increasing each year, and it enrolled a minimum of 30 junior infants on the 30th of September 2014. And 4, that as a result of the increasing enrolment of junior infants, the school is under significant pressure on its class sizes at infant levels, junior and or senior infants. Each application to the Appeals Board will be considered on its merits. The Appeal Board assesses whether, in its opinion, the school is deploying all of its mainstream classroom teachers in an appropriate manner. The Appeals Board will prioritise those schools that, in its opinion, are under greatest pressure on their class sizes at infant levels as a result of their increasing enrolments of junior infants. Any post granted by the Appeals Board will be allocated on a provisional basis pending confirmation of actual enrolments on the 30th of December 2016. The Appeals Board determined that both of the appeals did not satisfy all of the published criteria as set out in that circular. The Board of Management have been notified in this regard. The Primary Staffing Appeal Board operates independently of the Minister and the Department and its decision is final. I'm sorry that the news isn't better on this, but those are the criteria. They are set out very clearly, and there isn't discretion for me in their operation.
Thank the Minister for his response, although it is disappointing. Minister, if Criterion G was not satisfied, is there another mechanism that the school could look at to revisit the decision? Because Rathangan is a growing town, and the staff in Rathangan Boys National School are really fantastic in the work they carry out. We have just recently funded a redevelopment of the school building in Rathangan BNS, and that's very much welcome, and it's great to have it, but there's no point in us just funding infrastructure as a state and as a government. Education is all about the students, and without some flexibility we're facing a third class of 37 pupils, and where a single teacher will not be able to cope and reach with every child. And there are days where there will be a child will need that little bit of extra attention, will need a little help with some element of it, and with 37 in the class, the teacher is not going to be possibly able to reach it. I wouldn't imagine with too many classrooms around the country where there's going to be 37 or more in there. So maybe Criterion G wasn't the right one to apply under. Maybe there is another angle here, but the fact of the matter is we have 270 pupils in a school with 9 mainstream teachers, and the maths in very simple terms that those children in the primary school will be able to figure out is 9 into 270 just isn't going to go in an appropriate way. So again, I would say if there is some steer that the officials could give to the schools, maybe even look at any other angle on it, or if there's some way this decision could be revisited in September when the 270 arrive and are proven to have arrived at the end of September even. But I would have grave concerns for the level of education that the staff and the brilliant staff in that school will be able to provide come September with these figures. And this all comes down to having missed out by just one. And I know you have your criteria and you have to stick within that, within broad parameters. But I would ask that maybe the officials would engage with the school and look to see is there some other mechanism with which it could be looked under, even if that is in September. Thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. 2 minutes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I think that the two tests, the developing schools criteria and this alternative, criteria G, are the ways in which the department has sought to provide some sort of flexibility in the scheme. But it is a scheme that has to apply uniformly throughout the country, and if a school doesn't meet these, the appeals board obviously it operates some judgment in relation to to how schools are operating, but they are an independent appeals board. They've looked at it on 2 occasions under the criteria available to them, and I am sure that the appeals board, if they thought the school was overlooking something that obviously would have given them an avenue to approval, would inform the school if the application hadn't been submitted under the correct criteria. So unfortunately I don't foresee an opportunity for the school to overturn the decision based on the numbers that have been submitted.
Thank you, Minister. That completes the topical issues, and